Hello and welcome to the Irish Angle podcast on the irishracing.com YouTube channel. This show is brought to you by William Hill, who have launched a new bet builder, so make sure and download their app and check that out when you get a chance. Joined for this show by Johnny Ward and Paddy Flood. Johnny, Paddy, how are you keeping?
Good, Emma.
Very good. Good. We've got plenty to get through this week, I suppose. A massive weekend of racing, and all the way through the week, I suppose, we saw plenty going on and a few big news stories coming out as well. But to kick it off, I think the race that's lasting in your memory over the weekend, the John Durkan what a race it transpired to be. The two up the front of the field there. It was a real good battle down the straight, Paddy. It's a race that'll kind of live in the memory, I suppose. What did you make of it?
I'd say it's probably going to be the race of the season, Emma. I couldn't believe the guts of Gaelic Warrior. I mean, it takes some horse to do that. Paul, I think himself, would say that he was a passenger there for the first 4 or 5 fences. But in that scenario, as a rider, you're just hoping and praying that he might take a look at the stands, or he might take a look at something and just ease off himself a little bit. Because if you start lifting the reins off his neck and start fighting him, he'd have went faster, So I thought that was a great ride by Paul. I thought Mark gave his horse the perfect ride. And for all my money, turning in and jumping the second last, he was the winner. And the back of the last, Gaelic Warrior stuck in again. I thought he was going to win a length. And then Mark's horse picked up and went again. So it was exceptional. And I see a few comments of people saying, there was only 2 or 3 trying in it. Every single horse out there was trying. Believe me, I've seen enough of them now. When you see Lecky Watson going by the stands, getting slaps on the neck and squeezed to go a bit faster, and Galloping is only hitting a hill to go downhill, they're going serious lick. And he did the same in his beginners around Punchestown. And to be fair, Punchestown is probably the best chase track I've ever ridden anywhere in the world. And it lends a rider to get breeders in at the right time. So if he was going to be able to do it anywhere, it would be there. Right-handed suited him as well. But yeah, it was just a spectacle of 2 proper Grade 1 horses, big engine horses. And a race to the line. And the crowd there was amazing.
If every horse were trying, Paddy, was every jockey trying?
Yeah, look, when I say they're not trying, Johnny, they're not able to go any faster. So they could have got down and pushed us from halfway down the back, but they would have pulled up before the last. So they have to ride. It's like driving a car with your tank of petrol and it's telling you have 10 miles left. Well, you're not going to put the foot to the floor to get to the 10 miles. You'll ease it and eke out every bit of the 10 miles you can get. And that's what the lads were doing. They're trying to get the blows into them. And the horses in front were too fast for them,
Yeah, it's interesting the reaction in the Gold Cup market. Like, there's been basically no reaction whatsoever from the bookmakers. I know the way you're thinking remains 7-2 favourite for the Gold Cup with William Hill. Johnny, I know you're a huge fan of him. Look, it's probably a similar performance as to what he put in the race last year. Would you be happy enough with his comeback effort?
It's kind of inconclusive, really. Like the whole race, I mean, show me the most beautiful woman in the world and somebody will just see the same woman and see somebody that annoys him, and this race was for me one of the most memorable races. But it was basically like a match. Like it was a match rather than a 9-horse race. It was a Seabiscuit match. It was like a Dawn Run match. It was something like it was essentially a match from a furlong or 2 into the race. And the betting on the race, favourite was sent off second, Fact to File 11-8. Gaelic Warrior was sent off 13-8. Now I tipped up Gaelic Warrior after a run of about 10 losers. I had a winner yesterday. Tipped up Gaelic Warrior on Racing TV, but I tipped him at 100-30. So if I turn up the track yesterday and my options are Gaelic Warrior and Fact to File, both sort of 6-4 each of 2, it's hard to know what to bet in the race. So I spoke to a couple of bookmakers, and apparently there was a good spread of action, because we had 3 horses, 3 places in the race. Now, bookmaker went by me. I was in Mallow yesterday. Bookmaker walked by me just after the race and he said, "What an absolute joke, like a maiden hurdle at Navan," right? And another guy who who follows racing messaged me effectively the same thing today. So there are different ways of looking at this race. For me, in terms of the top two horses who were trained and were basically trying to win the race on the day, it was as good a jumps race almost as I've ever seen, because what Paul Townend was doing at all stages in the race was hard to figure out. Like, is he getting a breather into him? Has he gone too fast? And when Factifoil came on top of him in the straight, we were watching in the press room, and Dennis Harney beside me had money running on to Factifoil from the Racing Post. He was cheering him on. But some of us sort of did believe that Gaelic Warrior, that Paul had held on to something coming out of the back, that he kind of eased off a bit. But what's disappointing for me, Emma, in terms of the race is, if you have a grade one with so many horses of the abilities and ratings there, and just to note those ratings: 170, 173, 168, 176, and even say I Am Maximus 170. And in the race itself, if you look at the actual results, I Am Maximus was beaten over 80 lengths. I Know the Way You're Thinking, who's 176 rated, was beaten 53 lengths. The stewards report on the day, as of IrishRacing.com, the stewards report on the day is, and you go into it, S.W. Flanagan, rider of Sinesia, trained by Vincent Lawrence Halley, reports to the clerk of the scales that his mount never travelled. So Sean Flanagan had the wherewithal to go to the stewards and say to them, Sinesia, who's won at a long odds a few times, he never travelled, and he was pulled up at 150 to 1. Now, it's optics, and I get that, and it's kind of ticking boxes and all of that. But this race has more going on than just being an amazing race to watch. Like, if you're new to racing and you had a few quid on some of the horses in this race, you at the very least deserve some sort of integrity look at why this race developed to the way it did. Now, I completely agree with Paddy in the sense that I don't think any horse in this race had a hope in hell of beating the first two the way the race developed. Gaelic Warrior would be a top-class 2-mile horse. He went a very good gallop, but he stays 3 miles. Factifoil, Willie Mullins actually had these horses, according to the market, they were fit on the day to win. But if you backed anything else in the race, if you back fast or slow, you're rewarded each way. And there are circumstances behind him coming off his injury, and he probably was the one to take out of the race in some respects. You know, Gavin Cromwell's yard form has been mentioned. I think it's been probably overplayed a bit, but you couldn't go into the race confident about, I Know the Way You're Thinking. But if you see one of the best Gold Cup winners ever, who's a 7-year-old, in his very next run, and we've no hint whatsoever that he's been injured, beaten 50-odd lengths, at the very, very least, I want some explanation, if I had €10 each way on that horse, why I had to give the €20 away, because the stewards just have to ask the question. And Keith Donoghue can't come in and say, oh, like the horse couldn't land the blow, they went too hard or whatever. But it's just that there was nothing, no stewards action whatsoever on the race. So that's my take on it as somebody who values integrity, particularly in grade ones. I thought this race was amazing to watch, but also a bit unsatisfactory.
Yeah, look, I can see the point you're making. Like, if you're trying to explain to someone who goes racing a couple of times a year and maybe aren't following, everyday racing, and you're saying this is the Gold Cup favourite here, he's beaten 50-odd lengths, and same thing last year, but he'll probably still go on and win the Gold Cup. Like, it's a tough one to explain, and maybe the steward should have asked a question. Look, I thought it was a fantastic race. Gaelic Warrior, like Paddy said, I thought he was going to fall into a hole at one stage. Like, he went so fast, and he was quite in Paul's hands, but God, he was so brave to dig it out, and even had his ears pricked going past the line as well, which, there was a little bit left under the tank there. Well, I suppose one question, like, looking forward to the King George now, Gaelic Warrior obviously favourite for that, Factify likely to go as well, I'd imagine. Would you be worried about either of them now going into that after a fairly tough race, I'd say, Paddy? Like, that might take a little bit out of them, would it?
Oh, it'll take more than a little out of them, Emma. That was hammer and tongs, absolutely from start to finish. It was a bit like Gordon's good filly. What's her name?
Brighter Days Ahead.
Brighter Days Ahead
in Leopardstown last year. It was just flat out all the way. It will take a lot out, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure we'll see either of them travelling. It's only 5 weeks away. I was just listening to Willie after it, and he wasn't dead set on it. He said, we'll see how they come out of it. Like, if there were anybody else's, you'd say no, they'll be taking a little bit longer break. But being in Willie's yard doesn't tend to get minded or babied too much. They'll be out to get prize money wherever they go or how good they are. But I just want to say to Johnny, like, I think if you're at the track in Punchestown, I was watching it on RTE, and I don't think anyone cared about what finished in behind. I think if you're off the track having a punt,
they did though. They did, like, because if you I spoke to two bookmakers who had a good spread of bets on the race, so they did, Paddy. Like, and the bottom line is, as much as people love the virtuosity of the two horses, most people are interested in racing when they've a bet on the horse that they backed in the race. And if you backed anything other than the top two, if you back fast or slow each way, you obviously got paid. But there was a good spread of bets in the race, so most people lost money on that race in terms of the spread of bets on the race. So I get what you're saying, but if you're down a few quid and you have a monkey each way in a horse in that race and he's 50 lengths behind after 2 furlongs, you're not that bothered about the virtuosity of the finish.
If you're down a few quid and you're having a monkey on something else part of the top two, you shouldn't be punting.
There is that as well.
I think with a race like that, like if you're having a bet like that, you're taking a chance. And like, if it was me back, and if I backed any of the others, like, you just get taken over by the way the race goes. You kind of forget about your betting money into an exciting but that's just me. Look, I know other people will feel differently, but I don't know. I thought it was a brilliant race, and I wouldn't.
What was the atmosphere like?
I wasn't there. I was in Bulta. No, I wasn't in Bulta. I was buying a pony yesterday, so I wasn't there.
It looked amazing, Johnny. They looked really busy, and my mum worked in a local school, and they sent the kids out a family ticket, basically, to all the kids in the school. So that, to be fair to Punchestown, it's the one track that never felt like it wanted to rip anybody off. It's the one track that we feel like you're getting value, and you're not crowded. You're not queuing for a pint. You're not overly priced. The food is good. The welcome is great, and they're trying to get anybody and everybody in on the same price. And fair play to them. And it's been like that for years, and they should be credited for it.
Yeah, I saw Fran Berry had that up on Twitter. They sent out the tickets to the local schools, a family pass, which, it's a great incentive to get families racing, to get kids racing. Just get the local community behind the track, and that means an awful lot. Like, we see it in tracks like Kopek and Ballinrobe, like, they get the support of the local community, and it just makes such a better atmosphere at the races. And it was a brilliant card, I suppose, to help that up. But just kind of moving on to some of the other Gold Cup contenders, I suppose, that emerged over the weekend. We had some good chases in the UK as well. Django Bay, Jukebox Man, Grey Dawning as well, put in a good performance for the Skeletons. Johnny, any of those catch your eye looking down the line to King George's, Savile Chases, Gold Cups?
Yeah, I think at least two of them are definitely horses to take out of it in terms of the stay in division. Like Grey Dawning's performance, I suppose it was one of those visually that you're kind of thinking, was he as good as he looked? But I think beating Royal Pagaille on that ground, in relation to like Haiti Colors and some of the others underperforming in the race, maybe he wasn't quite as brilliant as he looked, but it was still a very good performance. The Jukebox Man is a horse that I think is just has an awful lot going for him going forward. It was a brilliant race to watch. And I don't know, there's something about Saturday racing as well, when you get these horses as the winter is closing in, producing these performances, well-backed horses as well. I think both of these going forward are well in that staying division. Like, and if you're taking horses from out of the weekend, Galopin Des Champs kind of hasn't gone away, but I hope there's more depth to the Gold Cup maybe than there was last year, because if it fell apart, like, I'd say Martin Brassil will take some positives from Fast or Slow. I know the way you're thinking. It's just very hard to read anything into yesterday, really. But those horses you mentioned, particularly on the Jukebox Man, I think they're well up in the staying division, and I really hope Gaelic Warrior goes to Kempton. I can't see why he'd run anywhere else.
Yeah, I can definitely take positives from Fast or Slow, like you mentioned, and kind of sounds like they might be thinking of going to the King George. It's hard to know. I suppose he was off the track for more than a year, but it was a good performance. And it looked good to get him back on track for Martin Brassil, who had a pretty good weekend as well in Punchestown. But I suppose going back to Saturday, the big race today, the Morgiana Hurdle, we probably didn't learn an awful lot about Lossim out there. It was a bit of a schooling session for her, Paddy. She took maybe a bit of a chance at one down the back, but look, that's probably as much as we can say about it, really. It was pretty easy sailing for her.
Yeah, straightforward, Emma, as it should be for a mare of her type. I'm not sure she's a mare that likes leading. Last year Danny tried to make the run on her in Leopardstown. She fell. She just got a bit too. She's a great filly. If you see her in behind where Paul rides her in them mares races, he gives her absolutely no light. But she's always making ground at her hurdles, so he's taking her back. So the fact that she has to concentrate on the hurdle completely and not, she's usually hard on the bridle, popping away in behind him, and when he opens her up, she's at top gear. So yeah, there is a little chance in her, but most 2-milers have that take a little risk in them as well. We wouldn't have learned that now the race. The second horse ran well, to be fair, a horse that's on the up. He could be one to be just keeping an eye on. He's probably not up to the hurdle standard, but he'll be there all winter anyways.
It's probably still inconclusive, I suppose. Like, is she the champion hurdle horse for Willie? I'd say we'll probably learn a lot more this weekend. And when we see Anzadam heading over for the fighting fifth, where he looks at the moment anyway, likely to take on the new Lion in Constitution Hill. They've all been confirmed this morning. Johnny, that will be a good showdown, and I'd say may steer where Lottie might go as well. Willie might get a better idea of what kind of champion hurdle contender he has with Anzadam.
Yeah, but I mean, again with Lossiemouth, it should be up to Rich Ritchie really where that horse should go. Like, if it's up to, it should be up to the owner where the horse runs in a race. Like, he's paying the bills, and if he wants to win like another mare's race, good and well. But like, you're looking at this race, she's beaten good horses in fairness by at least 19 lengths. She should be running a champion hurdle. I was very, very disappointed when declarations came out of this race. I thought it was a complete non-event. You've a 1-to-5 shot. I don't think grade ones like this do much good to, they're races that are just of no real betting appeal when you turn up the track and there's 1-to-5 about the favourite. And then, like, say, Aranci, who in fairness, like, won at a big price last time and probably isn't anywhere near as good as Lossiemouth, was a kind of an easy to back second favourite. So then you might have an edge betting without. But for me, the story of the race in ways was Glenkillen, how well that Glenkillen ran. And then we saw the famous colours carried to victory in Mallow. And I saw Michael Bowe racing on Sunday, and he looked great, and it was great to see those colours carried to victory, and also like what was a massive victory here in the sense of a 30 grand, like 30 grand of those connections will go a long way. The Bows wouldn't have had any good horses really, any proper good horses since kind of Solarina, whose son won a race on Sunday, and obviously Limestone Lad. Lossiemouth is very good, but I just don't know what to make the race, Emma. She went off 1-to-5. She's rated 159 going into the race. Aranci was rated 157, so she shouldn't really have been a 1-to-5 shot. But I don't know if Aranci is worth that rating. I just thought Anzadam being pulled out. I thought this race lost all its luster really. I don't know about you, but when you've 1-to-5 shots in races, 4-runner races like this, with only, like, even Gordon Elliott was saying the day before, like, he's no chance of beating Lossiemouth. I just thought it was a nothing race really in some respects.
Yeah, I know, I'd have to agree. Like, it wasn't much of a spectacle, I suppose. You only just made sure that she's still alive and well, I suppose. But I think looking forward to that race at the weekend, Paddy. You've got Constitution Hill, who came through a racecourse gallop well last week, I think. Reports are good from Nikki. The new Lion, Anzadam, that looks like a cracking clash coming up.
Can't help but to notice your smirk there, Emma, after the mentioning the track gallop. No, I'm going to stick with my old mate, Constitution Hill. He looked great in his track gallop, Emma. He looked really good. Look, it's if we're complaining about Lossiemouth's race, well, this is on the other end of the scale. This is a proper one, proper 2-mile test. And to be fair, the fighting fifth, it's a race. Do you know the way some races have lost their lure? From Archibald days to Hardy Eustace days to Rooster Boosters, the fighting fifth has stood the test of time, and it's perfectly scheduled.
Brilliant race.
More Irish getting there. Yeah, really good race. And it's a race
nice flat
that's
track
in the back
well,
of your mind. It's proper 2-mile, and it's always in the back of your mind, we'll get a look at them in the fighting fifth. And it shapes the market then for the rest of the year. And it's one, even as a really young fella, I remember watching it and going, Jesus, yeah, I don't know if it's the name of it, the fighting fifth or something, but it just sticks with me. Look, I know Johnny likes Anzadam. He has to take a big step here to beat these guys, unless Constitution Hill comes back like he did in Punchestown. Well, then, fair enough. But great to see the new Lion coming out and see where we're going. The form hasn't worked out really with Gordon's horse. Getting beaten Avon Stairs. So look,
Final Demand though, in fairness.
Final Demand is good, yeah. But look, he's obviously a very good horse, and as I said, he does jump like a champion hurdler. To be fair to him, that's one thing he definitely has going. I hope Nico just constitution and leads and just stretches them, and we get a true run race, and let's see at the end of it who should be a champion hurdle favourite.
100%, and that champion hurdle market is mad. I think since Statement came out of it, like, I think me and Johnny both kind of liked Amsterdam as a dark horse for the champion hurdle, but now he's 6-1 for a champion hurdle after winning, 2 races in Ireland. Like, it's bizarre. Look, maybe he'll live up to that, but it's just hard to believe. Like Constitution Hill 5-1, himself 6-1. Like it's a crazy market, and I think you'd be fairly brave to have a bet now at this stage. But we'll move on, as we've been kind of spoiled, I suppose, with top class racing during the weekend, going all the way back to last Monday. Kopek the Bordes, I think, to start off with, it was a blistering chasing debut, and anyone who hasn't seen it yet, Niall Tierney did a very good video on the irishracing.com YouTube channel, and it's on Twitter as well. Check it out. Just like up piece with the owners. I'm getting their, I suppose, build up and reaction after the race there. But Johnny, it was a brilliant chasing debut. Who, I suppose, if you want to be critical, maybe he was a little bit in Paul's hands. Well, he was fairly in Paul's hands, I suppose. Start jumping off anyway, at least. But he looked like a natural over fences, and probably a force we reckon with this year.
Yeah, Angus McNay's analysis in the field on Saturday about Kopek de Bordes, Lulamba and Final Demand was intriguing, and basically his point was that the visual impression was backed up by the strides, like basically how quick they got from A to B and all of that. Kopek de Bordes, in our live show, in our preview of the season, I put up Romeo Coolio against him just on the basis of price. Like I remember when Kopek de Bordes crossed the line the Supreme, and they were quoting from the Arkle next year. He was quoted at prices that he was hard to oppose. He does not look a hurdler at all. And I know he bombed out at Punchtown, but he's always looked a chaser. The one thing about him is, though, he is very he's exuberant, and Romeo Coolio is a far more straightforward horse. But as I've said, as much as I knocked Cheltenham for all the changes they make, the 2 mile chasing division now is really good, because there's essentially only one race you can go for. You're not going to go over 2.5. And he was spectacular, as we kind of expected that he would be. There's something about, I'm sure Paddy rode many good horses in this division. There's something about a really good hurdler going chasing for the first time as a novice over 2 miles that is just, I think it's nearly the best thing about jumps racing.
Yeah, 100%. And even like Lulamba made his chasing debut on the same day. It was a perfectly good debut, but I just thought Kopek de Bordes, he's kind of one of those horses you kind of got your heart in your mouth, in a good way, I suppose, watching him. Like, he's just so exuberant. He attacks these fences. Paddy, like, even you were mentioning about Paul's ride on Gaelic Wire, I thought he hadn't done Kopek de Bordes here. So it's kind of just let him do his own thing and found his own rhythm, and it was brilliant, I thought.
I was smashing ride, Emma, and a smashing win. Just before I go on, Kopek, I wasn't that taken with Lulamba at all. He wasn't very good going out of parade ring. He was a bit boyish and cheeky, and Jesus, I don't think he's too careful. I think for the likes of Kopek de Bordes, he's just spent too long in the air, and I don't think he actually hacked around. I think he was flat out for a good bit of it. And look, obviously his class got him to win it, but I just wouldn't have him anywhere near the price he is after his debut. Now, there were missing fences, but I'd say nearly he was lucky they were missing a few fences. He could have got slower in the air. I go back to Kopek. It's rarely you'll see jockeys putting their feet out in front of them and lifting the reins to actually take a really hard pull of a horse. It's rarely you see that at races going, because when you're taught to race ride and get a horse to jump is to be as fast as you can from point A to point B without losing momentum and stuff like that. So to see Paul over the first 3 to really grab a hold of him and teach him, listen, what Paul was trying to teach that horse is that fence isn't on fire, and you don't have to launch outside the wings of that fence. You can go in and actually rub it, and it won't hurt you, that sort of way. Now, I don't think Kopek worries about being hurt, but I think he just goes, he's a monster. He just wants to get on with it. So it took Paul them 3 fences, and one back he done the same. just lifted the rein, give him a little jab, and just let him know, I don't want you to actually stand off here. And eventually, you could see the horse just starting to itself. And then down the straight, oh my God, how good was he there? But if you watch the race again, watch Paul Townend's right hand going to the last. So his left hand goes down on the neck. Because your man is so brave, he's just holding that bit tight up to the back of his mouth. And yeah, he just, oh look, as much as I was kind of trying to find holes in him as a hurdler, Johnny said it, these 2 milers that want to just, run like that fence isn't there. That's what jumps racing is about. And he's big, he's scopy. He's a weapon. He really is. I'd say he's very, very good. And the piece with the owners, I actually had been watching bits and bobs of it, and I sat down this morning and watched it. I kind of found myself, when I put it down, I was smiling, that sort of way. You could feel there the excitement, and then all of a sudden the nervousness, and then I'm watching the race, and everyone's shifting and nobody's talking, and when he wins, then the joy of it. So, geez, I thought it was a really, really good piece. And if we could see more of that, I think it brings it very much to a human level,
I'd agree. And as well as that, Emma, I think ex-jockeys talking through jockeys' maneuvers in races like that, it's only really Ruby Walsh who does it. But I love hearing that stuff. It's like, because I will never see a race the way it's like a fellow who's done his coaching badges, or a woman who's done her coaching badges, watching little tactical maneuvers in a match that would just go over our heads. When you see Paddy talking about things like that, I'd love to see way more of that in racing coverage. I really would.
Yeah, and I just thought about the Kopek divorce. I know he's trained by Willie Mullins, the powerhouse, but they're an owners with, a few horses. They're not, J. from McManus, Rich Ritchie, they're not Dickinstown. It's great to see them getting the enjoyment in this kind of superstar horse, and it kind of gets the public behind the horse a bit as well, kind of having a bit of a connection to the owner and seeing how much joy he brings to them as well. So I thought it was brilliant and well worth to watch if you hadn't seen it. But kind of moving on a small bit, Johnny, you were in Fairy House when Alan O'Sullivan pulled off a really poignant victory in the Alex Sullivan and Lorna Brooke Ireland versus England British QR race. It was a brilliant result. Alan finished first on the Ian Donoghue horse, and Maxine just got pipped for second. She was third on Emmett's decimation. You interviewed Alan afterwards, and you could tell how much it meant to the O'Sullivan family. I think the full family were there, and it was a great occasion for them.
Yeah, I think Alan said they hadn't really been together like that as a family since the month's mind, which was in March. So obviously we can only speculate how difficult it has been for this family, and will ever be, really. I met his parents for the first time, and it was just almost, you say it's written in the stars, but it kind of felt like that, like, because Ian Donoghue to have drawn Alan in the draw on a horse who was essentially second favourite. Now, I really fancied Philip Rothwell's horse in the race, but he just wasn't good enough on the day. And then it looked at one stage, as you say, Emma, like it was going to be Alan against Maxine. Just a couple of things on it. Like this race meeting was obviously refixed, and it looked like it might be. I thought it was going to be called off again. Initially for waterlogged Fairy House, and then for it was -4 the night before on Friday. And I mean, I was surprised it went ahead. Vinny alludes to this in his blog, like Brendan Sheridan and his team they did a brilliant job. Like Brendan I've never seen him so frazzled that morning, because it was just it was probably such a kind of a touch and go thing. And if you make the call, which they did at 7:30 to delay an inspection to 10, and that goes P-Tong, everyone who's arrived at the track, or a lot of people just give out to you, why didn't they just call it off at 7:30? This is a complete waste of time, waste of money. It worked out perfectly. They nailed it, and it ensured then that these races went ahead. And the race honours Lorna Brooke and Michael O'Sullivan, and it was said to me by a few people afterwards, this race deserves more support than I was getting. Like, I think John Ryan might even have run 2 in the race to kind of to support it, because like they weren't overblown with entries for it. And Michael won the race as an amateur before, and I think Lorna Brooke won the first ever lady riders race in Ireland or Britain. And the race has kind of developed over the years, and it's obviously utterly tragic that we've 2 people now in the race title, but it's something that I hope can gather a little bit of momentum going forward. And I know, like, Ian Donoghue has had a hell of a year. I think this meant the world to him to see all of the O'Sullivan family there. And Alan has Alan's had on the track. He's shown his talents months and months and months now since his brother passed, and this is going to be a very, very difficult Christmas for them. You can only imagine. But little things like this and that day, and just the fact that there was just such a lovely cheer. Like, there weren't many at Fairyhouse, as you would expect. It was a refixture on a Friday that looked like it was going to be called off. It was a great big cheer, and it was just one of them things that warms your hearts. Like, and they're just a marvelous family. Eugene nearly had a winner himself then on the day as well, and it was just lovely to see. But I hope it's a race that can gain a bit more traction. Like, later on that day, there was the John Thomas McNamara series. Like, you've just constant reminders about how dangerous the sport is.
Yeah, 100%. And Alan, like you said, he's developed into a really top class rider, and probably be no shock if he was to turn professional himself at some stage, because he's definitely a man going along the right road. Point to point on the track, he can do it anywhere, and he's had a blistering few months of it, in fairness to him, on the track. But another good family success over the weekend, Conor King, former two-time champion apprentice, going back a little while now, but Conor, I think, is only 26 or 7, I'd say, roughly about that age.
29.
But he's got 2 horses. 29, sorry, but he's got 2 horses in training now, and they both won over the weekend, Paddy. It was some performance. I think his first ever winner came in a listed hurdle about this time last year with Oscar's brother. Now he's a grade 2 winner, an exciting one to have in the stable. It was 2 out of 2 over the weekend. It was a good family occasion, I suppose.
Yeah, brilliant. And it might be a surprise to some people. It's no surprise to me. I've seen Conor when he was riding. He was a smashing rider. Just his weight got the better of him. And the young man that's riding now, I had him in the school for 5 days. I think we'd done like a pony race experience for the better riders or whatever. And they were in every day, and we were just building it up. And they were asking, could they jump a couple of hurdles? And I'd say at the time he was probably 7 stone. He was only a little dot of a thing. And as good a rider as you've seen at that age over a jump. And I'll never forget him, because I kind of went, oh, there's a chap we're going to see a lot more of. He just got that very down-to-earth, easy-going, nice horseman, right? Nice style. And yeah, 2 horses in the stable. And to pull off, the 2 of them winning a big race. And geez, it was a great race, because he was on the speed all the way, and you were kind of thinking, oh, will he, won't he, last it. It was a pretty good race too, but a good man on his back and a really good family. But yeah, great story. We had a lot of good stories this weekend.
Yeah, Richard and Mary, I think, are the parents, Emma. I was talking to, to meet them at the races like a fair bit, even though obviously it's more, they often go to support Dan, I think, riding. And it was nice. Dan was there with his girlfriend, Jessica Stokes, in the ring. I think Jessica came into the ring, but she only had her first winner lately on Alfalfa as well. And it was just so nice that Conor had gone for them 2 races a long time out. But he was telling me afterwards, like, his dad basically bought the 2 horses for very little. And he was like, he was there with the other brother, I think, might ride out as well. I forget his name. He's an engineer now, but the 3 of them are always at the races. And Conor was saying to whichever brother it was, Daniel or the other brother, he was riding the Capri and the other one was riding the Oscar horse. And Conor was basically saying, I think this lad is good. I think the 2 of them are good. I can't be that far wrong, can I? And the 2 of them turn out to be like to have 2 horses. Like I've a bill coming today for a horse I own a bit of, and it's hardship. And you're looking at so some people can be lucky. These are 2 proper horses. Like, they're really 2 proper horses. And the dad picked the 2 of them out, Richard, for little money. He was telling me he's Galway kind of connections through his dad. They only live a few miles down the road. It was brilliant to see yesterday. I was really willing them on. I thought the Florida Pair was a fantastic race as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But you'd often hear, I suppose, trainers talking about how important good work riders are. You don't really probably get much better than a champion apprentice and his brother riding the work. So they probably know what they're talking about. He was sure. Didn't he beat Conor King or Colin Keane to an apprentice title a few years back? I'm sure he did. He won 2 a few years ago now, but I'm sure he'll be one to watch out for in the training ranks as well when he kicks on a bit more. But we'll move on. A few other stories from the week. Plumpton. There was a bizarre incident in Plumpton. Paddy, I'll go to you and your views on this. I suppose to give viewers who mightn't have seen it. At the start of a handicap hurdle, a qualified rider's handicap hurdle, there was a few hurdles in the home straight to be omitted due to low-lying sun. basically the checkered flag was waved and a whistle went off to notify the riders of the bypass hurdles, and 4 of the 9 runner field pulled up thinking it was a false start. Look, it's a strange one. We've seen kind of similar-ish incidents, I suppose, in the past where riders pulling up, not sure what was going on. Look, I don't know. I think 3 of the riders were suspended for 7 days. For me, though, I think we've spoken about it before. Like, there has to be a better way of doing this rather than waving a flag, especially when, this isn't an incident that happened mid-race, where a horse might have been down. Like, they knew these hurdles were going to be omitted before the start. I know the responsibility has to go somewhat to the riders as well, but when they are amateurs and there's a few overseas jockeys riding as well, could the procedures around this kind of thing be better, Paddy, or are they doing it the best way possible?
I'm not going to be overly critical now on the BHA for the way they're doing it with flags, because I'd be more critical on the riders. I know you're amateurs, but to this day and age, an amateur's not your old school amateur anymore. Amateurs are getting a lot of rides and they're on the track. They're not just point-to-point men anymore. They're on the track. Nearly every race meeting at the end of it is a bumper, so they're there. It's very simple if you know the actual rules. There's a checker flag and a whistle, and that's to ride with caution, which the hurdles were out. It got blown. There was a flag. If the riders, they were all probably, from what I can take from it, was they're probably sitting in the jockey's room being told that there'll be them couple of hurdles will be out, and that was it, and lads went out not actually checking what's going to happen, what's involved with that. So from me looking at it, it looked like when they heard the whistle, some panicked, and then they seen a checkered flag and they didn't know what it was. So with the whistle, it's quite a loud whistle when they do it. It's just to, let you know that there is a caution flag above, and a stop race flag is yellow and green, I think it is, or orange. It's a luminous anyways. See that flag, you stop immediately. So, but if you see a checkered flag, it's caution. It's like the Formula One still using flags. That's, yellow flag, there's a car on the track or something, and a red flag, stop. But no, I've no real idea how much clearer you can be with it. It's not rocket science. It's the colour of a flag, and you would have known that the hurdles were out anyway, so you should be expecting this whistle and the flag. So listen, Adam Ryan won it, and I'm pretty sure he hadn't a clue what was going on either. So I don't know what other solution you'd come up with. Do you need someone to stand out in front of them or something? But look, I know in Australia and places like that, they have a light and a sound on the inside of the track, but at the same time you don't really notice it either. So I don't think you can be any more clear than it, telling them this is what a flag does. Them hurdles are going to be out, and then they didn't go and adhere to it.
I was just I saw Adam Ryan's interview afterwards. He just kept going, because I think there's a few around him kept going, and Patrick Mullins didn't seem too sure about what the exact rules were either, which just got me thinking a small bit. Johnny, what did you make of the whole situation?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have much to add apart from what Paddy said there. I would have some sympathy for the jockeys, and mad things can happen in races, but I guess they should know the rules at this stage.
100%.
It's a bit like a sheep mentality, Emma. It's a bit like, when you're riding in a race, people don't realize how little you see. Usually you see your horse's neck and his shoulder and whatever's in front of you. So if somebody somewhere starts going, oh, Jesus, what's going on? Well, you set a panic through the whole flock then, because it's not normal. And it's the same with Paul Townend when he went through the wing on album photo. Like, he's seen nothing, and then all of a sudden he spotted something, hard to describe, but yeah, we would be sheep in a pack, basically.
I suppose you kind of have to make those decisions so quickly. Is that once you start pulling the horse up, you're kind of gone. Then you can't really go back on your decision then. But I suppose another freak incident in the start, Johnny, over the weekend in Evangeline Downs in America. Did you see the video of that on Twitter? God, it was scary looking. The horses broke out of the stalls, and once they turned the home bend, there was an ambulance coming towards them. Very lucky to avoid disaster there. The jockeys did quite well.
Jesus, that was mad. I just actually saw that today, and that could have been really catastrophic. And I remember was it at Navan years ago? There was an incident where the horses started after basically they were let go in the stalls before one of the stalls kind of handlers had gotten away, and there was a really bad injury came out of that. And I kind of remember saying to Dennis Egan at the time, I was surprised this doesn't happen more because you have so many starts and all of that. But like I think the IHRB's view or the Turf Club's view at the time was like, obviously this just can't happen. And like when you see the bravery of the stalls handlers and all of that, and basically, you know, there's it never really happens if you get stuff like this, and you forget how, like, if your horse goes loose, you forget how strong they are. But Jesus, this was, I mean, how could you describe this? It's like something out of Naked Gun or something like that.
Yeah, scary moment for the jockeys, I'd say. Their heart was definitely up after turning that bend. But moving on, a kind of a late addition to the running order. News came through this morning. Dylan Kitts has been given a 9-year suspension for his involvement in the Hillsin incident back in 2023. The part owner of Hillsin has been given a 12-year ban, and trainer Chris Honor has been fined, I think, £750 for his role in misleading the stewards in the case. Paddy, I suppose no massive surprise in the bans handed out. It's a case that's been lingering on for quite a while now.
Has been lingering a long time, Emma, and look, it's probably the end of Dylan Kitts' career, basically. You know, I think he's got 9 years from 2023, so he's probably got another 7 to do. You can't condone what he did, to be honest. It was so blatant, and it was so wrong. And look, even if you're in that much fear of an owner or something, if he'd just let go of the horse's head and won on it, it wins. What's going to happen? You know, go in and report what happened in the parade ring to the stewards afterwards. He would have been protected. He would have been minded. He chose not to. He chose to pull the horse. I don't know the ins and outs of it. Did he receive monies or didn't he receive monies to do it? Whether it was just threats. But look, this thing, we've heard more of it in England years ago, that, you know, people under pressure to get rides, under pressure to make money, make a living, and look, you meet a punter or who you think might be a mate, and all of a sudden you're sending them a tip, and then all of a sudden it's maybe you shouldn't win on that one today, and it spirals, you know, and easy cash, anything easy is not worth doing really in racing. But I remember something happened to me years ago. I was probably 17, 18, so random this, that I got a message on my phone. You know, there wouldn't have been smartphones now, like now, but from a guy, or I presume it's a guy, saying, listen, all you need to do is let me know when one of the favourites isn't going to win, that you're riding. I said, okay. So I was young and a little bit dumb at the time, so I kind of got my ears pricked up a bit, you know, and thought about it straight away. And I thought, geez, this could be the Turf Club. So I just sent back. I said, look, I don't know who you are or what's going on. I don't believe this is real. And then he texted back and said, listen, I've left a phone for you in Extravision, the old Extravision shops in Newbridge. So just out of curiosity, I went in, and here there was a phone with one number on it. You know, even back then. So at that moment, I shit myself and said, oh, I rang Mick Halford and I said, listen, this is going on. And he said, just get rid of it, destroy it, and tell whoever it is not to contact you. So it does happen, you know, and if lads are struggling bad enough to pay a bill, they'll do stupid things.
Jeez, it's
Yeah. There's well spoken there, Paddy. This people forget about Yashvili, right? Yashvili was a horse that was prevented from running on its merit at Downpatrick 2011. He was trained by James Lamb, and people will think of James Lamb that remember the case and think of Yashvili and the horse being pulled up. Often the trainer, often the trainer has nothing to do with what's going on here, you know. And in this instance, James Lamb was exonerated years later, but in many ways it sort of destroyed his career. And there's an element of that with Chris Honor here, where you have like these absolute, like essentially scumbags who are doing this and putting a jockey under the pressure that this kid clearly was under. And you have, like, Emma, let's not forget, there are criminal elements out there in various parts of the world with an Irish background who are involved in all sorts of kind of skullduggery and are involved in racing in some shape or form now and again. If they see money, if they see there's potential, jockeys need to be aware of that. The one time I ever felt anyway afraid in my career was when I was reporting on Hockey League of Ireland games. I was told by an intermediary to stop reporting on it. I didn't have a child at that time, but the inference was quite clear. For your own safety, stop reporting on this. And I did because it was like, what's in it for me? Another 50 quid to write an article on it or something. You don't know you genuinely don't know what's going on. And I hope the IHRB looks at this case with its own cases going forward and lauds the investigation. I know it took a long time, but boy, did they come to a conclusion on it.
Yeah, like you can kind of justify why this has taken quite long, because obviously there was a lot of different moving parts. And you kind of touched on it there. Like, you would have to feel sympathy for Chris Honor, because I haven't looked at these stats recently, but the last time I checked, like I'd say he's got a significantly lower number of horses than he did have. This obviously had a huge effect on his career as well. And like you can see, Brian, like he's been fined €750. I think I can't remember exactly, but I think he might have been trying to stick up for Dylan Kitts a bit in the inquiry.
Do you know the thing, Emma? And your dad will know this. Sorry to interrupt. One thing I think as a trainer, know your owners as best you can, and if the owners are front for something else, make sure you find that out, because that goes on as well. And there are owners out there. Do a bit of digging. Just know your owners, because in fairness to the trainer, like the owner is paying the bills and he or she should be able to plan a horse, what's going on and all that. But just know your owners, because you can be done.
100%. And look, that's like, it's important, obviously, but in some ways it's probably easier said than done for some operations. There's trainers out there struggling. They're just looking to get horses in. If they're getting paid every month, that's probably going to be enough for a lot of them, which, look, it can go badly, obviously, but yeah, it's a difficult one. And I don't know, maybe the racing authority should have stricter screening for the owner process. I'm not sure, but it's an unfortunate situation for Chris Honor, but finally came to an end, I suppose, with Dylan Kitts and John Higgins both getting their lengthy bans. Any more news from the week? I suppose Joseph O'Brien trained his 1,000 flat winner at Dundalk. Some achievements, Johnny. I think 32 years of age. I'm not sure. I was trying to find out how many winners Aidan has trained. I think I was looking it up. I couldn't find any recent stats, but I'd say he's probably on about 3,500, maybe 4 winners. Joseph, could he get up to those kind of numbers eventually? Like, he's a very, very young man.
Yeah, like, and he, I suppose, himself and Donica, I remember Don McLean writing about how he was having breakfast with them one day, and Joseph was an absolute, like, a nipper at the time, probably barely even walking, and his ears pricked when they started talking about racing. So, like, it was from the get-go that he was going to get into this. He's very, very hungry, and he I don't know how he manages all those horses, but I think he's a very good team behind him, and it was a hell of an achievement. He'd be quite humble as well, a lot like his dad in the sense that he wouldn't be bigging himself up. And what his ambitions are will be interesting, because do you want to, I'm sure he wants to be champion flat trainer, and his dad has no sign of slowing down, but he has all the aspects to it, and I do like the fact that it goes back to his grandfather, that gallop, that he's kind of tweaked a bit, his grandfather on the other side. I love the fact that there's that historic lineage as well.
100%. Yeah, no, I have it here. I think Aidan had trained 3,000 odd flat winners in September 23, so probably add 500 or 600 on top of that. I'm not sure, but yeah, he's probably destined to be top of the table at some stage down the line. But yeah, brilliant trainer. I'd say we've gone through most of the major news, lads. All that's left to do now is a horse to follow from the week, and probably plenty to choose from. But Paddy, I'll go to you first.
Martin Brazel's bumper winner, Emma. It's only a game. Really good performance. Martin, he's had a run before, but Punchestown last May. For one of Martin Brazel's to win first time out, 9 times out of 10, nearly 10 times out of 10, they improve for the run. Martin's your old school trainer. He takes his time with them and lets them come rather than forcing the fitness on them. So I think he could be a really smart horse, this guy, and he looked. Now, as I wasn't there, but he looked a beautiful horse on the TV, and real flow, real, not a slow type, which Martin can have sometimes, but a real promising looking horse.
Yeah, he was actually my own as well. I thought John Gleeson gave him a brilliant ride as well, really patient, and to get up that gap as well on the rail, like, it looked like it was closing. If the horse was brave and showed a bit of pace to get up through there, and for a 4-year-old, like, it was some performance, I thought. But Johnny, yourself?
I could have given Lovely Hurling from that good family that JP has, who's somehow run into Final Demand, and Kopek the boards on his last couple of starts. Jesus Christ, he deserves a bit of luck. But a hell of a performance. Like he kind of kept tabs with them as best he could. Star 2 though, Emma, I thought was interesting at your local track yesterday, because after last season, Willie Mullins was talking of him as an Albert Bartlett horse, but he put a hood on him over 2 miles. So it's kind of like, well, is he going to be that keen? Because so many authorised, it's nearly 50% of authorised horses over jumps end up having a hood, maybe more than that. But Danny Mullins rode him, and he wasn't like mad keen to get the lead, but he seemed to settle pretty fine anyway. And like he smashed Challenger Dara. He's beaten by 8.5 lengths. He's absolutely smashed him. He's 8-15, so he was well expected. He was only 7th, beaten 7 lengths to Champion Bumper last year, but bit like Amsterdam, like you get these authorised horses that they're kind of headstrong, and they're all at it as befits his own sire, I suppose. But this horse must have a hell of an engine, because he absolutely demolished them. And there's some other smart horses in the race, and if he does get 3 miles, this horse, he'll remind me a bit of Nicholas Canyon, maybe another authorised. If they try to stretch him out to that and he gets it, he'll demolish everything he faces, because he's loads of ability. Whether or not he gets 3 miles, I don't know, but fascinating to see a 3 miler on a 2 mile debut wearing a hood.
Yeah, it was some performance. Like you nearly forget about after the races during the week. Like there were so many top class horses came out, but he could definitely be one to follow down the line as well. Lads, I'd say we'll wrap it up there. We'll be back next Monday to review. Probably a brilliant fighting fifth by the looks of it. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and bye for now.